Well, greetings, everybody. Yeah, my brother David, he did suck in his last breath and leave it out on the 15th of January, and it's grieved me greatly. I mean, most everything that I have here in my home is accredited to him and his precious bride, Brooke, who I do love dearly, and may our King be merciful with you, Brooke, for the mercy that my brother and you have showed upon me here with most everything that I have. This monitor, the computer, everything that I have here, 50% of everything, as some of the food is still what he has given unto me, and Brooke as well, but everywhere I go in this home, that's all I ever think of, was my brother, my sister Brooke, but mostly because of my king, who has allowed them to bless me as well as they did, to keep me as they have right now. And I've been really grieved, It's not an easy thing to lose one who is as close as my brother David. Though he didn't believe the way that I do, it didn't matter, David's different than others. There are some in my family that would not urinate on me if I was on fire. So my brother David, he would certainly urinate right on me the best he could, and he was quite different than others, though starting out it wasn't so. I mean, he would pick on me and things that later I didn't even realize, and I brought a video out about when he actually did admit to me that he had also seen these supernatural things going on that he didn't profess before. And he had mentioned that he went back to 336 Lenox Ave, Oneida, New York, and talked to the people that were there, and they had no more of the dead bothering them at that time. However, before that time, I had gone over there and I had spoke to those on both sides that had stated they had lights turning on, things of that sort taking place, or children talking to those that didn't appear to be there. So I asked if it would be all right if I chased off what I believed was there. I let them know my story about that house. They said, please go ahead and do so. So I asked that the devils be removed, from the house and not be let back again, because I knew they was there because of me, and I wasn't there no more, So I asked that those that are there won't be affected by these other ones, and asked that our king send his holy Malachim to arrest any that resisted leaving and fleeing from that place. So, of course, when my brother went there weren't any there. But the thing is, while he was younger, before he went into the Air Force, he used to pick on me and make me think that I was going crazy because of the things that I used to see. Now you fast forward some 30, 40 years from there, my brother's letting me know that all of a sudden, he also seen what I was seeing, but was so scared he didn't want to admit it. So he would pick on me, hoping it's kind of like pulling the blankets over your head. And I was so intrigued in what he was saying, I just couldn't believe it. It's like, man, you let me think that it was all in my head all these years you never seen. And he admitted that he did. And it was, wow. So my brother and I got so much closer over the last few years of his life than most have ever been with husband or wife or any other. My brother has been very beloved to me. And shortly before he moved away to Alaska, he came over and his belly had all just protruded. It just came right out. And I'm like, bro, man, you've got a problem going on there, and I highly recommend, that you stop eating Doritos and all these things that got the phosphates and phosphorus in the ingredients on the labels of what you're eating. Please don't eat these things anymore, man. It's not doing well for you, and please do some cleanses if you can. I don't know if it's going to help or not. And of course, David, let me know that there wasn't much help for him at that time, and I already understood it. I could see the symptoms from eating the phosphates, the phosphorus and foods and such. And just a month or two ago or so, he was telling me how he had lost all his taste, that everything that he ate tasted like crap. And I knew at that point that was it. My brother, I was shown, okay, don't ask me how, because I can't explain it other than saying that I knew my brother had a very short time left. I mean, he loved his wife, his bride, as he loved his first wife that made him a widower, and he loved his bride, Brooke, who also has children. David and Jennifer are my brother's children's names, and my brother David was above most anyone on the earth today. I'm going to tell you, as far as character goes, and he didn't believe as I do, but he didn't war against me either, and he'd seen things that I showed him, though he regarded the news as nothing that he desired to listen to at all. And I would send him off little clips here and there, knowing that he didn't want to see, but what I sent him was quite substantial, mountains melting away or whatever it was. And my brother loved me, and I loved him. And just moments after the Sabbath, here on my part here, the phone rang, and I knew already what was taking place. And I just pulled the covers over my head, and I hid like a little child. I didn't want to hear what was on the end of the phone, because I knew what it was. And a couple minutes later, the phone rang again, and I got up and I answered. It was my cousin Maria, who I do love very dearly. And she let me know what I already knew. My brother David had breathed his last just moments before, but upon a Sabbath day. And I had prayed for a long time that my brother, that he would not experience the pains so much of death, but that he would go to sleep, and that would be it. And my brother and I spoke extensively on many things about which I don't want to speak much of, but he said that if he was under some sort of disease or whatever that was going to be very prolonging, he would take into his own hands his own death. And I knew that he would, because my brother said it. He was the type of man that his word was what he was. So many today don't understand that, but I do, because I am of the same caliber. And my brother gave me most everything in my home here after I was burned out the last time. And to put me up in these apartments that I really do detest, because I'm among everybody here, Guy above me, I guess, just moved out. I didn't even know he moved out till I seen the rugs and everything else being thrown out onto the top of the snow, and it was gone the next few minutes when I opened the door again. But I don't know of most anything that goes on around me. It's like my prison cell here in this apartment that my brother's furnished. This desk right here, it's got drawers, it's got doors, it's got all sorts of things, and I thank him for it. But the thing is, our Heavenly Father, through our righteous King, moved my brother to give me these things because my brother understood the firstborn law, you know. I mean, he was marvelous. He was the most marvelous brother. I think of him every moment of every day because everywhere I go in my home, a great percentage of everything that I own, he gave unto me. And he never asked for anything. Even though he knew I love him, he didn't even ask for my love because he knew that I did. Now, I would that this would have come to me weeks before he went to sleep for the last time. But it was an experience, and I really hate to say, you know, I really miss my brother, not only because he was a witness to so many things he believed, and he saw what Enoch spoke about me. He saw so many things. And he lived through so many things, supernatural, some people try to say, but for us, they were actually natural things that were taking place. And in one instance, a long time ago, I hate to say, but it was a long time ago. I was probably about 8 or 9 years old. My brother David was sitting up there in the front with my father. Jay was sitting next to me and I'm in the back seat. We didn't use the seat belts, no, because there was no seatbelt laws in those days. But anyway, we're going out camping, and all of a sudden we're going up through the Adirondacks. And it was already dark. It was very dark. There was no moon out or anything of that sort. It was very dark. And we were going to go out. We've done it many times before. Go up some old logging road. Find a little place where there's a clearing. Pitch our tent. Grab everything we got. Bring it in. It was no problem at all. We didn't worry about bears or things of that sort either. And as we're going up this road, we heard this sound that was otherworldly. I mean, it was a sound that none of us ever heard before. Dad had slowed down because of a curve that was coming up, and all the windows were up in the car because though the weather was rather mild, it could be kind of cold when blowing, doing the excess of speed limits that my dad used to love to drive at. And this noise, this I mean, it was a scream like I had never heard anything like. And even though in that time of my life, my brother David's time of life, we seen the dead. He didn't want to admit it. I said I admitted it. And all kinds of things came on me because of my saying so. But this scream was just emanating through the air. My dad slammed on his brakes. And these screams and howls just froze us to our bones. I mean, goosebumps on goosebumps, I'm telling you. And we took off and went down the road, and we came upon an area where there was law enforcement agents. And there was a wreck that was horrible, man. I mean, in those days, cars were not like they are today, where they just, blow up into nothingness. These cars, in the older days, even with a collision, they kept their integrity. But the police that were there at the time had stated that the fella that had the accident that wasn't there anymore had his chest caved in because the steering wheel was broke right away from the column and there was blood on the column. So they figured that this poor fella, his chest was caved right in. Well, we told the police there. I believe there were state police and I believe there was a sheriff. And it's like, look, we heard some screams about 1.5 miles back. We showed them where it was. And these screams came forth again. But I'm going to tell you what, I would my brother was alive today so we could discuss this, and I'm sure he would believe me as well. Though he wasn't a believer of what I believe, he never put me down for it. He did sometimes try to make humor of it, always in great taste, and I love my brother David. My Uncle Art and Maria. Jenny is a most wonderful niece to me. I love all my family members. My brother's family. My family. But now my brother is asleep, and I love you, sis. Brooke, I know how difficult it is, you living where my brother had lived. I'm living as though my brother lived here. My bed behind me here, you and David gave me, so don't you go passing off too quick, sis, because then I'll be doubly grieved, okay? What I wanted to make sure that people understood is that I think that Bigfoot sometimes are all right, okay? Because my brother David, we spoke about these things earlier, just a couple years ago. My brother David believes in Bigfoots and such, but at the age that this occurrence took place, where we're driving down the road going to go camping, and these other or worldly howls and screams like a banshee and all sorts of things orchestrated all into one caused my daddy to stomp on the brakes and like look back at all of us, and we're looking at each other, and it just went screaming again. Well, my dad wasn't light-footed. He took on off out of there, and when we got up to the place where the police were at, which was about 1.5 miles away, we told them, no, we heard some screams. So they thought that this scream came from the fella, and they had the accident. But please understand, at this time, right now, I never understood it like this. This fella, it showed, had broke off the steering wheel. And this is in the 60s. Broke the steering wheel right off, meaning that he had hit his chest on there, because there weren't even, seatbelt laws at those times, and that he was out there doing the screaming. My friends, I tell you, I went to Houston to our brother Shane's house. He gave me the keys to his house. I fell in his tub. I broke all 7 ribs on one side. A couple I broke in 3 places, but most of them were broken too, and it hurt horribly. So I do know that somebody that is out there in the woods that has had their chest caved in by a steering wheel, that the steering wheel broke off and just the column crushed in their chest. Ain't no way they could make those noises. When I broke my ribs, it was like, My son came to the bathroom door and opened it up, and Dad, you okay? I'm like, He helped me over so that I could tell him I fell. And it was because our brother's shower had the kind of water that when you use soap, it takes 20 minutes to wash it off, to where you're not slick anymore. And the bathtub itself was really slick. So I hit that, and when it came down, my arm hit the side, and boom, it went right out and hit me right, boom, down here in Abilene, Texas. We went from Houston back to Abilene. It was the time of my father-in-law's death. We went back to Abilene, where I lived in Clyde. We went to Clyde, where I lived, and I went to Abilene to check out whether I punctured a lung or not, because I knew I was in bad shape. And don't you know, as we're driving down the road, the window's down on my side, and a bird comes in through the window and hits me right in the chest. And though I didn't, I really felt like I wanted to die at that time. And my brother David, he knew all these things. He's seen these things. And he's blessed me greatly. And therefore, I had asked a long time now, because my brother told me if he was going to suffer through life at the end of his existence, that he would pull a gun on his own self. And I had started praying. And I knew when he came, just a few weeks before he moved back to Alaska, he came to my place here, my little prison. He helped me move into and furnished, and I'm very thankful that he did. Our king led him to do so, and he did so. So I pray my brother's going to be in the second resurrection. I have no doubt that he'll be there, because I know our king is merciful. Whether I'll see him there or not totally rests upon whether or not I keep my king's laws and his commands. If I don't, I won't see my brother, But if I do, my brother's going to see me in that second resurrection, and joyous is that day going to be. Same as I believe it's going to be with his bride, Brooke, and his children, Jennifer, and David, his son, which carries after his dad in so many aspects, but also after me too. I mean, the poor guy, he got bit by a tick. He's got Lyme disease. The worst things you could think could come on a person has come upon my nephew as well. And though they don't see exactly the way that I do, they don't hate me. Others do. And hopefully here shortly, when we're going to be gathered, those who are left behind for my brother, those who have survived, as they say, survived. Well, why wouldn't they survive? I mean, my poor brother, I told him when his belly was pumped right out there about a week before he had left to go to Alaska with his beautiful bride, it's like, David, I says, hey, man, that belly, what's going on with you? And he said, oh, I don't know. He said, it's just gotten, I don't know. Because my brother David was always very thin. He would eat actually, and I'm not bragging, well, I am bragging. My brother David could eat 5 pounds of macaroni. A 5-pound bag of spaghetti that wasn't cooked, but then cooked with a big old pot of sauce with meatballs and sausages and you name it, and 2 or 3 loaves of French bread. He'd sit down, he would eat all of it his own self. And he was always thin as a toothpick. He would take a whole boiled egg and go, and I don't know how he did it, but he would suck it right down in, and he would do it with half a dozen eggs. With a dozen eggs, he'd suck, boom, 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 and he'd make a lot of money. My brother David was so blessed that he'd go anywhere, and he'd say, hey, that's the prize I'm going to win. Let me buy the lottery ticket. He said, that's what I'm going to... And guess what he would get? He would get whatever he picked out that he wanted. He was always blessed. He'd go to the casinos. He'd win. He was the complete opposite of me. No matter what I put my fingers to, turned to crapola. Whatever my brother did, he succeeded, but he wasn't greedy. And he loved people, and he helped people. But anyway, I just want to let you all know that I miss my brother greatly. I love each and every one of you. I'm praying for each and every one of you every day. We're going to get back to making another video here before too long. I just been having a real problem coming. My brother just passed. I love him dearly. I mean, the monitor in front of me here, the computer to the left, the monitor to the right. Here I am stuck in the middle with you. I love my brother, and my sister-in-law, Brooke, who provided these things for me. and not believing anything like I do, but they loved me enough to do so. And I just want to let y'all know I've had a real problem, sitting here before the things my brother bought. This desk my brother bought. Didn't even know he was doing it. He had it delivered to my door, and it's like, wow. I had a little desk for the computer, and he says, no, if you're doing what you believe you're supposed to be doing with that Our King's channel, then you need something you need to make you feel like you're doing it better, or whatever. And so he gave it to me. And, I just want to say that I know my brother's going to make it into the second resurrection. I would that I could have told him about that screaming and calling on the road that we had heard that made us tell the state police and everything to bring him back to the area where we heard those screams and calls, and they even heard them to where they pointed their light out there in the yard and found the fellow that had the accident, that had his chest caved in, that couldn't hardly even breathe, that would have never been found for who knows how long had not those screams taken place. So I do believe that maybe it could have been me. The reason why those sounds were made that paralyzed my dad to where he stopped, heard more, had to go, and then show the police back to where we heard these noises coming from. They heard it, shined their lights out in the field, went out in there, and found the fella that had that accident that actually did roam that far away, 1.5 miles. And it was like one of the only clearings in that area of the woods that we were going off to go camp in. I gotta tell you, we didn't go camping that night. And I would that I could tell this to my brother David today, but he went to sleep on me. And I remember him, and I remember his precious bride, Brooke, his children, Jennifer and David. I remember every moment of every day, no matter where I go in my house, are things from my brother and from Brooke, and therefore from his children, So I just had a real tough time. I wasn't able to say these things without my voice cracking and going crazy. So I just want y'all to know that I love y'all. I miss my brother. I truly do. I know he'll be in the second resurrection. No, he didn't go to heaven. He didn't go to hell. He didn't go to purgatory. We had a little agreement that if he was on his way to heaven, he'd stop over and say, hey, Al, I'm on my way to heaven. But guess what? He never did. And I'll tell you something else. Part of why I knew my brother was on his way out was that he lost his taste. Everything he ate tasted like crap. That was half his life. He loved food. I mentioned how much he used to eat before. Never affected his figure, but he loved food. Now all of a sudden, everything tasted like crapola. I had the same problem with phosphates and phosphorus in the foods when I had a bad allergic reaction, which made 1 and 1 make 5 to me. When I remembered his belly was protruded as it was, and that's what the phosphates and the phosphorus does to a human being's organs, is they turn them to stone. And I knew what was taking place, and it was horrible, and I explained it to my brother. He understood, but the greatest thing of all was that he fell asleep peacefully. And that's what I prayed for so long. So he doesn't have to see what's coming on all of the earth here shortly. I mean, look at the things going on, my friends. They're horrible. These are judgments that are coming on all of mankind. May we be gathered soon and protected under our King's wings. And until then, I love y'all. Bye.